This is from Sandra in Victoria, Canada. I think what unsettled me most wasn't waking up in a hospital bed surrounded by machines. It was realizing that everyone expected me to slip back into the life I had before. But I already knew deep down that life was gone. I'm going to start by saying I got into an accident. Before the accident, I was known as the quiet one. I liked silence, books, and routines. I barely spoke in class. I followed every rule, and my friends teased me for being cautious. I was comfortable being invisible, like a shadow that no one paid much attention to. The moment I opened my eyes after the crash, I could feel something strange inside my mind. My thoughts were jumbled, my body felt heavy, but my words came out in bursts I couldn't control. I was loud, impatient, even sarcastic, nothing like the girl I remembered being. The doctors smiled and told me I was lucky to be alive, but luck didn't feel like the right word. My family hugged me, their arms tight, but their expressions uneasy. It was as if they were trying to convince themselves that I was still me, even though their eyes said otherwise. I remember one afternoon clearly. My sister asked me a simple question, and I snapped at her. The anger in my voice startled even me. She looked at me with hurt and confusion, like she was staring at a stranger wearing her sister's skin. That moment broke something inside me. As days passed, my friends stopped visiting. At first, I made excuses. They were busy, life had moved on. But the truth was painful. They didn't recognize who I'd become. I was still here, but not the same, and people drifted away from the unfamiliar version of me. One night, I sat with a pile of old photographs, smiling at birthday cakes, standing shyly at a school dance, eyes lowered in every picture. I stared at that version of myself for hours, whispering, "Are you still there, or did I lose you forever?" Looking in the mirror became unbearable. My reflection was familiar, but the person staring back didn't feel like me. I would whisper my own name, Sandra, Sandra, remember who you are. But the sound of it felt foreign, as if I was speaking to someone else entirely. Despite everything, I became stubborn. I couldn't just sit at home, waiting for life to return to normal. Against medical advice, I demanded to go back to college. It wasn't only about education. It was about proving to myself and to everyone watching me that I still had a future. Those first weeks back were overwhelming. Classrooms felt too loud, fluorescent lights too sharp, and even the sound of pens scratching paper sent jolts of panic through my head. But I forced myself to keep writing, even when the letters blurred, because stopping felt like admitting I was broken forever. I started noticing how different I was in ways I couldn't hide. I blurted out jokes in the middle of lectures, interrupted professors without meaning to, and laughed at things that no one else found funny. People stared, and I felt my cheeks burn, but I couldn't stop myself. It was like someone else had taken control of my personality. My parents sat me down one evening, their faces heavy with worry. My mother said softly, "You've changed." She thought she was being gentle, but her words cut deep. I wanted to shout back, "I know I've changed. Don't you think I feel it every second of the day?" Instead, I just sat there, swallowing the truth I already knew. Late at night, when the house was silent, I would sit with my old journals spread out in front of me. The handwriting was my own, looping and careful, and the words were filled with quiet thoughts and shy observations. But as I read them, the voice felt like it belonged to someone else. Closing the book quickly, I wondered if I'd ever meet that version of myself again. Anxiety became my constant companion. Crowded hallways made my chest tighten, and the sound of footsteps echoing too close behind me sent waves of panic through my body. Unexpected noises, a door slamming, a phone buzzing, made my heart pound so violently I thought it might break me. Sometimes I felt like I was watching the world from behind glass, painfully close, but forever separated. I told myself over and over, if I just worked harder, I could claw my way back to who I used to be. I stayed up late, pushing through exhaustion, rewriting notes until my hands ached. But the harder I tried, the more obvious it became. Maybe the old me was gone forever. Maybe I was chasing a ghost. I avoided parties, though not because I was shy like before. It was because I never knew which version of myself would show up. Sometimes I'd become the loudest person in the room, laughing too hard and too long. Other times, I'd suddenly collapse into tears I couldn't explain. I couldn't risk letting people see how unpredictable I had become. Sometimes I'd stand in front of the mirror until the face looking back at me blurred. My features hadn't changed, but the person behind my eyes felt unfamiliar. I whispered my name, Sandra, Sandra, remember who you are, over and over again. But no matter how many times I repeated it, the sound felt hollow, like I was speaking to a stranger. Did you know, every year, millions of people are injured in car accidents around the world. Some walk away with scars, others survive with paralysis, and countless others suffer traumatic brain damage. And then there are those who never make it home. I survived, but survival came with a cost I never expected. Research shows that nearly half of people who survive severe brain trauma report dramatic shifts in personality, so dramatic that loved ones sometimes describe them as entirely different people. It isn't just about losing memory or speech. The brain can rewrite the very core of identity itself. When I first read about this, I felt a strange wave of relief wash over me. My confusion wasn't just my burden. It was part of something larger, something science could explain. The shame that had weighed so heavily on me lifted, even if just a little. And I finally understood I wasn't defective. I was living proof of how fragile the human mind can be. It was during this difficult time that I met someone who shifted everything, a fellow student who is deaf. We communicated through scribbled notes, exaggerated gestures, and patient smiles. For the first time since my accident, conversation didn't feel like a performance I was failing at. It felt like something we were building together, carefully, word by word, until trust slowly grew between. Our friendship grew slowly but deeply. With him, silence wasn't awkward. It was part of the conversation. I realized communication could be flexible, creative, and human even without the old version of myself. It was the first time I felt like maybe I could belong again. Through his world, I began seeing mine differently. Watching him navigate classrooms with patience and resilience made me question why I was so ashamed of my own changes. He didn't treat me like I was broken. He treated me like someone who was still learning how to exist. I started joining him at events with the deaf community. At first, I felt out of place, clumsy and uncertain. But soon, I noticed something familiar in their experiences. The way people underestimated them, the way they had to fight to be understood, it mirrored my own battles. For the first time since the accident, I didn't feel completely isolated. Their strength reminded me that identity isn't fixed. It's built, rebuilt, and reshaped by every experience. Maybe I hadn't lost myself. Maybe I was still creating who I was meant to be. This realization gave me a new direction. I switched my studies toward biopsychology, determined to understand how the brain defines identity and why it can change so dramatically after trauma. It wasn't just about healing anymore. It was about turning my pain into purpose. But even with this new drive, doubts haunted me. Late at night, I'd sit on the edge of my bed and whisper, "Who am I, really? Was I still the shy, cautious girl everyone once knew? Or had she been erased forever, replaced by this unpredictable stranger?" Sometimes my family looked at me with a kind of quiet grief, as if they were mourning someone who had died. They loved me, but I could feel their longing for the girl I used to be. That longing made me ache in ways I couldn't put into words. The hardest part is knowing that I'll never fully answer the question of who I am now. My brain injury didn't just change me physically. It rewrote the foundation of my personality. And yet I'm still here, breathing, hoping, and trying to live with both versions of myself. I've come to realize survival doesn't always mean returning to what you were. Sometimes it means becoming someone entirely new, even when it feels like losing a piece of yourself. That truth terrifies me, but it also frees me in ways I never imagined. So maybe I'll never be the Sandra I once was, but maybe that's the point. Life isn't about staying the same, it's about adapting, shifting, and finding meaning in what you've become. What would you say to someone who feels like they've lost themselves? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more real voices like mine.